Hey guys, Taylor here, and I am back with another insight video that I feel like most autism parents and most people with autism or Asperger's syndrome can possibly relate to. Today we're going to be talking about autism and anxiety and how those two kind of go hand in hand with each other, and I'm also going to be sharing my own personal experiences with anxiety. Alrighty guys, with all that now being said, let's talk. If any of you guys don't know what anxiety is, don't worry because I am about to tell you. I know for a fact that there is an overly medical-defied definition of anxiety on the internet, and you guys could go ahead and look it up in your spare time if you wish, but I'm just going to simply give you guys my own definition of what anxiety is. To me, anxiety is what happens when you're overly nervous about something, or something is really getting you really nervous and scared inside, and you just get really antsy, really tense, and you just don't know what to do about it. Anxiety affects a lot of people, but it also is affected in the lives of people with autism and or Asperger's syndrome. And before I started filming this video, I did my research, and I have seen on a few articles that anxiety in autistic people and people with Asperger's syndrome is very common. The thing is, I think most people understand what anxiety feels like, but I don't think people really understand what anxiety feels like to someone with autism. Every single person who has anxiety issues feels it in some way or another. However, people with autism and Asperger's syndrome feel it more intensely than the average person who is not disabled. I think this is because people with autism and people with Asperger's syndrome tend to sense things through other people's actions, emotions, and reactions. I also think it's because that people with autism and Asperger's tend to feel more overwhelmed about some things, and that also can have a playing effect when it comes to anxiety. I also think that triggers to an oversensory meltdown may have a play on it, because if you are already overwhelmed and those triggers stack up against each other, the more tense people with autism and Asperger's start to feel. That can either turn into an oversensory meltdown, or that could turn into an anxiety first and then go into an oversensory meltdown, or it could just turn out to be just an anxiety. I know most of you guys are probably wondering, how in the world does she know about this stuff? Number one, I did my research prior to filming this video. But number two, and more importantly, I have anxiety issues myself. I think I have always had issues with anxiety because of the oversensory meltdowns and the triggers stacking up on top of each other and me just tensing up right before an oversensory meltdown. But it took me up until more recently that I began to notice that I have anxiety issues. And coincidentally, that was also the first time that I think I've experienced an anxiety attack. This happened a few weeks ago while I was at my old charter school helping the teacher I volunteer for unpack for the open house that following Monday, which was last Monday. And I noticed this weird pain in my chest. My chest felt very tight. So I went to bend down to pick up something, and right here was really tight. I remember feeling so scared. I thought I was having a heart attack. But then I thought, that's probably not it, because I'm incredibly healthy, my blood pressure is good, my weight is good, I have no health issues whatsoever besides the autism, so I don't think it's a heart attack, but I feel really tight around that area. So I went to my mom, because my mom works at the old charter school as an office manager, and I told her about the pain, and I told her about the tightness of my chest, and she said, oh yeah, you have an anxiety, that's just an anxiety you're feeling. Then my mom recommended that I take a few laps around the building, inside the building that I volunteer for. The inside of the building kind of wraps around itself like this big ginormous circle. So I walked a few times around that. I walked around a few times in the cafeteria, then I got a few sips of water, and the teacher who I volunteered for offered to put in a movie that I could watch while I'm working to help calm me down. And she did, and then I started to calm down, my anxiety level started to decrease a little bit, and I just went about the rest of my day completely fine. Like I said, I think that I've had anxiety issues throughout my whole life. It just took me up until that first noticeable anxiety attack that I began to realize that I had anxiety issues. For the longest time, I just thought that that was part of having an oversensory meltdown, and in some ways, It still is. It still is a major part of having an oversensory meltdown because you're overwhelmed, your chest is tight, you don't know what to do, and you feel this overwhelmingly sense of stress come over you. But at the same time, I kind of feel that an anxiety also plays a lead factor into an oversensory meltdown, because what you would feel in the beginning of an oversensory meltdown, that overwhelmingly feeling of stress, that tenseness in your chest, short of breath, the change of tone in your voice, that is also the same thing that happens when an autistic person and someone with Asperger's is dealing with an anxiety at that moment. Now that I've told you guys a little bit about my anxiety issues and my experiences with an anxiety and how it affects me mentally, I'm going to give you guys some tips, some advice, and some insight as to what helps me when I'm dealing with an anxiety. The first thing that I recommend doing, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows, get a drink of water, walk around for a little bit, take a few deep breaths outside of where you're at, whether it be your room, your workplace, your school, wherever. Just take a few moments to step outside, take a sip of water, count to 10 if you need to, and take a lot of good deep breaths. The next thing that I recommend doing, which I actually started back in 10th grade when my oversensory meltdowns began to get a little bit more noticeable and a lot of people were beginning to focus on them and they were becoming more revealing and more apparent. Keep a journal in handy and write in it. You can basically carry a journal anywhere, whether it be at school, at work, or at home, and you can just write down how you're feeling. That way you can just get everything out of your system on paper, and that way if you're feeling like that again, you can look back, like you can turn the pages of the journal and you can look back of how you felt and what you did to make you feel better, and then you can write in it again if you wish. I also would recommend some type of stress toy, like a stress ball or one of these stress bottle thingies where you shake it up and all of a sudden it looks like you're in a glittery, beautiful pink abyss and a beautiful glittery island. Another thing that I would recommend doing is if you have an anxiety attack or if you have an overwhelmingly sense of an anxiety during your work day or during the school day, on your way home, turn on your favorite radio station or turn on your playlist on Pandora and just sit there and jam out to your favorite music. You could turn on Disney music, country music. I like country music and Disney music. And you can also do Christian music. I am a big fan of gospel music as well. But you guys can also do like hip hop, R&B, pop, soul, all that stuff. You guys can just jam out as much as you like and as freely as you like. Now, my advice to those who are autistic and who have Asperger's syndrome, who do deal with anxiety issues, I would recommend using your sensory toys. Absolutely. Through the game of trial and error, I recently discovered that the stuff that helps me with my sensory issues helps me deal with my anxiety a little bit. I know a lot of people are online going, if you're having an anxiety issues, go see your doctor, you know. But here's the thing. If you already know that something works to help your anxiety, why go to the doctor? If you know it helps and if you know it works, just do that. Resources are always a very valuable tool. I'm pretty sure that there are some books out there of how to deal with an anxiety, but for you autism parents, I know for a fact that there are some articles online of how to help your child with autism or Asperger's deal with their anxiety. In fact, Autism Speaks has a few articles on their website about that very topic. I really hope you guys liked this video. I hope you guys liked watching it, and I really hope you guys learned a little thing or two from watching this video when it comes to dealing with autism and an anxiety. Well guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up if you guys liked it. Also in the comments below, tell me about some ways that you deal with your anxiety and what other topics and videos do you want me to talk about next. I look forward to reading and replying to your responses below. And finally, as always, if you guys like my videos and want to see more videos from me in the future, go ahead and give this channel a subscribe. Well guys, that's it for now. Until next time, bye bye.